It's very easy to give the piece of advice that we should forget about the past, not worry about the future, and focus only on the present moment. But people are usually pretty light on practical ways of actually doing that. They'll maybe say that you should meditate and then leave it at that. And they also don't describe the process by which we become so entangled with the past and the future in ways that we don't actually want, which causes that worry and has that effect of having the tabs on in the background of your mind. The way we get rid of our obsessions with the past and the future is by being more careful with the entanglements that we choose, and as Nietzsche said, not leaving things in the lurch, meaning not leaving anything half done and not committing to anything that you're not fully going to commit yourself to in the future. You've probably had it before where you had an event that you agreed to, say a party or a meeting, and you were dreading it and thinking about it, so that you were in that meeting in the sense of worrying about it for hours and hours or days before it actually occurred. But then a day before it occurred, it was canceled, and you felt this lifting of a great weight off your shoulders. And I think that there's something very profound in that lifting experience. There's something close to spiritual enlightenment in that sense of, I'm free from that commitment. I'm no longer entangled with that problem that I actually wanted no part in. So how can we have that feeling all the time? And the way, guys, is to be very, very careful in saying yes to things. And this doesn't just mean saying no all the time. What this means is considering every single option you're given and deciding if you want to become entangled with it long term. Another mental thought experiment that Nietzsche puts forward is the eternal recurrence, meaning that we should live lives and therefore live days and therefore live moments in the way that we would live them if we had to live them again and again and again on into infinity. So would you say yes to that party if you knew that you were going to have to say yes to that party an infinite number of times back into the past and into the future? Would you take that job if you're going to have to work that job 1,000,000 lifetimes after this one? And this is far better than the what if I died tomorrow mentality or the only live once mentality, because that can go either way. You can justify trying hard drugs by saying, oh, I only live once. You could also justify making good decisions. But this idea of repetition means you have to actually think deeply about what the experience will be like in the short and long term for me if I agree to this commitment. Because if you don't contemplate it, then you're going to be stuck in it. And most importantly, it's going to somewhat own you, even before and after it's actually happened. There's the famous quote, the things we own end up owning us. And I think that's even more applicable to the things that we agree to, the friendships that we allow to continue, even though that person doesn't treat us that well or we don't get much out of it. The parties we go to, knowing that we're not going to actually enjoy them because they're not really for us. They're not going to be something that we can enter into and really enjoy. The jobs, the meetings, etc., etc. Everything you agree to that you're not fully committed to is going to weigh you down, and you're going to lose the bandwidth that you need to achieve actually important things. And this is the key point, guys, is these things are not free. You don't agree to go to a party. You don't agree to a job. And it's not just opportunity cost. When you agree to these things, you're giving part of your brain that's committed to them. There might be practical things you have to do to actually prepare, but your brain is going to, somewhat in the background, be considering that coming event. And this is really, really clear if you agree to do something like give a public speech in front of 5,000 people when you've never done it before, or if you agree to take some crazy job that's going to bring you halfway around the world. As that thing is on the time horizon and it approaches, it takes over your mind like some kind of like fungus or something. Like it just gets closer and closer, and it's occupying more and more of your thoughts. Unless you're just like a perfectly unneurotic person who can just be completely at peace with every decision that you make, this is going to happen. But the thing is, those are the only obvious examples. When you agree to like take a job around the world, it's very obvious that you have that nervous feeling. But if you agree to take a slightly weird job that you're not happy with, if you agree to a slightly pointless meeting, in the same way, that meeting has some kind of spiritual hold of you, which means you need to decide to keep your slate clean. Because if your slate is not clean, you're going to have so much background stress. And I almost want to call it karma. You're going to be entwined with things that happened before that you weren't happy with and that you feel like dissatisfied with. Like there's some charge, like an emotional charge, say around a job that you didn't like and you had bad experiences with. That's got you in its clutches. In the same way, if you're going to do something that kind of you don't want, that you don't energetically match with, that you're not fully committed to, that also has its clutches on you, even though it's dawning and coming in the future. So in both directions, the things that we do that aren't a perfect match for us take up our thoughts, take up our mind, take up our energy in ways that things are a perfect, congruent match don't. And that is something that I love the feeling of. When you do something and you just think, I was meant to have done that. Even if it's going on a hike, going on a trip, like I just know that that was a puzzle piece in my life 100%. But then there are other things that they go wrong and you can just tell, like, I wasn't meant to be here. I wasn't meant to be at that party. I wasn't meant to go on that trip. Like I just didn't kind of fit in nicely. Pay attention to those moments and you'll be able to see patterns of what you don't fit in, like who you really are, the kind of places that you should be, the kind of people you should be around. It's going to take some time to figure that out. And so I'm not saying don't experiment. If you're really young, you should verge on the side of experimenting and going to things when you're not really sure. But as you get older, you need to look back and see, what are the things that took up my time that I didn't really jive with? And what are the things coming up in my future that might take me to a similar place that will similarly waste my time, take my energy, and leave my brain kind of always in anxiety for those things that are coming and always somewhat depressed about those things that happened in the past that I didn't really fit into. So in both directions, consider carefully your options and look for patterns in the things that you feel like you fit into nicely and avoid the things that you don't. That's all.